Viewers, this is a big issue. It concerns our children. Most of us are parents, and we will have an opinion on this. After pushing for gender-neutral bathrooms in schools and transgender participation in girls' sports, the woke ecosystem has a new frontier. It now wants 16-year-olds to be legally free to have consensual sex. A petition before the Supreme Court seeks to lower the age of consent from 18 to 16. The court will hear it in about 2 weeks. Indira Jaising, counsel for the petitioner, has said blanket criminalization infringes upon the constitutional rights of teenagers to personal autonomy and dignity and lacks empirical or rational justification. Under the current law, the POCSO Act of 2012, any sexual activity involving someone under 18 is an offense. Even if two teenagers consent, it's treated as statutory rape. Supporters say this unfairly criminalizes young blood. They argue many 16 to 18-year-olds are already sexually active and capable of choice, and that families often misuse the law to target inter-caste or inter-religious couples. Lowering the age, they claim, would align India with global norms and separate exploitation from genuine relationships. Viewers, all of this sounds sensible, plausible on paper. But is it? Some 16-year-olds may seem mature enough to decide when and with whom they want sex. But exceptions don't make the rule. If a 16-year-old is mature enough for sex, why not to vote, drive or drink? All remain illegal below 18 and for good reason. Science tells us the teenage brain's prefrontal cortex, the part that handles judgment, planning and impulse control, isn't fully developed till the early 20s. So this idea of, quote, informed consent at 16, unquote, ignores biology, not just, viewers, morality. And lowering the age could actually raise the risk of grooming and manipulation by older adults. It's naive to think predators won't exploit a legal loophole. India also lacks strong sex education and remains socially conservative, viewers. In this context, legalizing teenage sex isn't progressive, it's reckless. Even Western studies link early sexual activity to higher rates of STIs, which are, of course, sexually transmitted infections, and teenage pregnancies. And I'm talking about the West, viewers. The center, on its part, has argued along these lines, saying, quote, the age of consent at 18 is based on clear legislative intent and constitutional protection. Reducing the threshold could increase the risk of exploitation and weaken safeguards meant for minors. Courts already have discretion in exceptional cases, unquote. What the government is saying is that, look, if there are problems, if someone has complained against another child, two 17-year-olds have had a falling out and one complains, then the courts look at that and make exceptions. Protecting adolescents isn't about policing love. It's about recognizing limits nature itself sets. Pretending most 16-year-olds are ready for adult choices is to confuse woke virtue signaling with wisdom. 16, viewers, is still too young. A lot of people think that. But viewers, at the end of the day, it's the courts that are going to decide, and that's going to happen in the first week or the end of the first week of November, as I said. Of course, we all have views, and I would love it if you could, as we put out the tweets and all our commentary and this show, you could interact with us and tell us what you make of this. I want to open this up, viewers, and have an informed debate. None of us are here looking to score debating points because it's a very, very serious issue, and as parents, you need to get a 360-degree view on this issue. I want to begin first with two lawyers really. One, Abha Singh, And of course, we have with us Jay Anand, Dehadrai. I was saying, where do you stand on this issue? What is your view? Do you think Indira Jaising is guilty of a little bit of woke? It's a very fashionable word these days, so I'm going to use it, woke overreach.
No, I won't call it overreach, because if you see, for so many years, more than 50 years, in fact 60 years, age of consent was always 16, and suddenly it was made 18. And at that time, rightly, Indra Jaising also says that the stakeholders were not consulted. It was something which was imposed upon everyone. And when you made age of consent 18 without thinking what the ramifications would be. I do family courts, I do criminal law, and I have seen so many children, these teenage romances that we call, these kids have eloped from school. And undue pressure of the parents compel these girls, even though they have run away on their own free will. Because of the parents' pressure, they come and say, yes, he took me away with him, he kidnapped me, abducted me, and then rape. And these young boys who should be in college, who should be in school studying, have the stamp of a rapist and are in these child homes, shelter homes. They are abused even more. So these things need to be looked into. We cannot just have legislative overreach saying 16 is made 18 without seeing how many innocent lives are lost. We are so much of permissive society that if we think that the children at 16 are not indulging in sexual activity, then I think we are just not in sync with today's generation.
We are not in sync with today's generation. Yet you said that back in time, they allowed for consensual interactions. So obviously that generation must have been much more enlightened. But I can't fundamentally understand, Jay Anand Dehadrai, if children are so aware today, then why aren't they drinking, allowed to drink at 16, drive at 16, vote at 16? I mean, then let's just drop this whole pretense that children can't decide for themselves till they're 18 years old.
Rahul, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a ludicrous, dangerous, reckless idea. Let me start by saying that. And, with great respect to the very distinguished person who spoke before me, she spoke of legislative overreach. I asked myself this question: isn't it for the legislature to really determine what what the age of consent should be and other pertinent issues? Why will the Supreme Court, or why should any court, and certainly why should Miss Indira Jaising, what makes her, what qualifies her as an expert to sit and opine over something that is so complex, right? And her role as an amicus curiae, I'm sorry to say, an amicus is supposed to be objective to the court. It's literally friend of the court. You're supposed to be objective. You should present all the data, good, bad, indifferent, everything. Now, I have a very simple illustration in my mind, Rahul, and I put it to you, and I put it to all your viewers. Now, imagine your 16-year-old, anybody's 16-year-old child, boy, girl, whatever, and suddenly, decides to develop in school a sexual relationship with one of their teachers, a physical education teacher, or some dance teacher, some English teacher, whatever. And at that age, as you rightly said, kids are hardly, expected to be mature enough to make any decisions, at least of such a nature. Would it then be acceptable for them to come back and say, well, I'm now in a relationship, and there is a power dynamic here. There is a lot of close proximity, and they get into a physical relationship with somebody like a teacher of theirs, and then and later come back and say, well, it was perfectly consensual. And another very important thing that I think you pointed out, that now, if sexual relationships at the age of 16 are to be permitted, the natural consequence then, Rahul, are pregnancies. Do we want now, teen pregnancies between 16 and 18? And the WHO says that the amount of birth defects and the amount of, the danger to even the mother's life between the age of 16 and 19 is what the WHO says is extreme. And one last thing, the NCRB data, I have it for 2023, presents a terrible picture. So there are about 70,000 plus POCSO cases of, sexual assault cases against children, of which 96% happen to be girls. So what are we doing? Does Miss Indira Jaising and whoever these, individuals are who are backing her, or groups from the West that are backing her, what do they want to do? Do they want to completely destroy Indian society? And yes, we are very proud of our norms. We're very proud of our cultural values. We don't have to go around aping everything that the West says or the West does, and it hasn't worked for them. You very rightly pointed out, teenage pregnancies, single-parent households, and you know what that leads to? That leads to, crime. That leads to enormous crime. There is a direct correlation between children who are born in single households, right, with only one parent, and massive crime. So this will open the floodgates to so many issues in Indian society, and we don't need it, we don't want it. The West can keep this great idea, of allowing, consent at the age of 16 to itself. It doesn't suit India.